I looked at him, I said, you know, there's something inside that guy that's pure gold. And I believed in that, and I was right.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the notable romances that captured our hearts and then broke them.
At this minute right here, now specifically, we're happy.
We're happy.
Number 30, Nipsey Hussle and Lauren London.
I don't have a celebrity crush. I'm with my celebrity crush.
Right, there you go.
Who's your celebrity crush?
I ain't got no celebrity crush.
Me.
The Grammy-nominated rapper's first and only full studio album was aptly named. After years of building a following with his mixtapes and community service, Nipsey Hussle's Victory Lap was launching him into another echelon of fame.
I'm the streets voice out west, legendary self-made progress last time that I checked.
From 2013 to the time of his death, he was in a relationship with actress Lauren London. The two shared a deep faith that marked their creative and personal decisions, including London's decision to forego a dream TV role to have their son cross. The rapper's 2019 murder still haunts her, but she's continued to show strength in the face of that pain.
And I always like, my kids deserve a very happy mom. They deserve joy. Why would I rob them of that? You know, so that gets me up.
Number 29, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall.
What'd you do that for?
Been wondering whether I'd like it.
What's the decision?
I don't know yet.
He was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. She was a first-time actress getting her big break. But when Humphrey Bogart met Lauren Bacall on the set of the film To Have and Have Not, it was the stuff dreams are made of.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
Bogart ended his marriage, and despite their nearly 25-year age difference, they fell deeply in love. They starred in more films together, playing out a version of their real-life love story for their audience. Bacall and Bogart remained married until his untimely death in 1957 at the age of 57.
I was so mad about him that I was like a fool. I was an idiot, you know, and he was more than I ever thought I would ever have in my life.
Number 28, Ariana Grande and Mac Miller. In her 2018 hit Thank You Next, Ariana Grande includes a particularly sweet shout-out to one of her exes.
Wish I could say thank you to Malcolm, 'cause he was an angel.
To anyone in the know, this was a reference to Malcolm James McCormick, known professionally as Mac Miller. Grande and Miller were an item for almost 2 years. Grande's very real anguish at his shocking death in 2018 seems to suggest her love for him was very strong and very deep. Another ex of Grande's, Pete Davidson, said Miller's death shattered her so much that he knew their own engagement was over as a result.
All I do know is that she really loved the out of him, and she wasn't putting on a show or anything.
Number 27, Helen McCrory and Damian Lewis. They were a venerated acting power couple. Helen McCrory and Damian Lewis were beloved for their varied performances on the stage and screen, and their combined star power made them a fixture of British media. They were also known for their dedication to philanthropy.
You know, we were sending pizzas originally to St Mary's Paddington in UCLH before we realised how big this problem was. And the pictures of people not only so happy to eat because they've been there for so long, but also to know that everybody really cares and wants to give the kind back that those people are giving us is such a privilege.
Few people knew McCrory was ill with breast cancer before her death in 2021. She worked up until the very end.
She's probably been a candidate for a seat that she just got in, and she's just worked her way up because she's never questioned that she shouldn't be Prime Minister.
One thing that marked their public-facing relationship was their sense of humour. Apparently, McCrory wanted Lewis to see other people after she passed away, only asking that he wait until after her funeral to find a date.
She was celebrated by, her tribe, her profession. She's much missed.
Number 26, Martin Short and Nancy Dolman.
So it was insanely beautiful. She had like Joni Mitchell hair to here, and she'd come in with a
a velvet cape and sign, and hi guys, everyone we're healthy, no one's sick, and we go, hi.
The Canadian funny man married his wife, Nancy Dolman, after meeting her during their run in the musical Godspell. They were married a few years later, after which Dolman retired from acting to focus on being home to raise their family. They were together for 36 years before Dolman's death of ovarian cancer, and Short honoured his wife's wish that they should have a party instead of a funeral for her.
Paul Schaefer came up, played piano, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell were there, we sang, friends and family got up and sang. We turned it into a Christmas party that we used to have where people perform. And it was a celebration. But then I kind of went to the bonfire around 4 in the morning and hung there till dawn.
Though Short has been open about the difficulty of grieving, he also shared that he still feels Dolman's presence. He once said that they were together so long and knew each other so well that he could still have a conversation with her as if she were in the room.
I know exactly what she'd say, because you do. We were together for 36 years. So at a certain point, you literally become one person.
Finish each other's sentences.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Number 25, John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
We get a bit more respect in America as artists, but in back home, I think it's the case for all artists. Back home, it's a bit like, I'm the man that won the pools and lucky guy who had a spot of luck and married a Hawaiian actress, you know, and which isn't true, really.
Despite the long-time myth that their love affair was responsible for the breakup of the Beatles, Yoko Ono and John Lennon fueled each other's art. She became Lennon's muse, and even his former bandmate Paul McCartney said that his beloved solo hits like Imagine would not have been possible without Ono's inspiration.
I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
The couple became famous and controversial for their shared sense of activism. Ono was with her husband at the time of his devastating and shocking murder in 1980. She's since dedicated her life to preserving her husband's legacy as an artist, musician, and human being.
You still live in the Dakota building in New York?
Yes, I am.
And that's the building, of course, where John was murdered outside. You were with him when he was shot.
Yes, but you know, it was our home. That was the only home we had. And that's the only home I had with John. I'm not going to leave it.
Number 24, Betty White and Alan Ludden. Whenever she appeared on Password, the Golden Girls actress always had a lot of chemistry with the host. There's a reason. They were happily married.
The password tonight is...
Home. Will you take me home, please, Mr. Ludden?
I certainly will, Miss Ludden.
Betty White actually met her third husband, TV presenter Alan Ludden, on the set of Password in the early 1960s. When Ludden initially asked her to get married, she refused him for a year, but later said that she'd have given anything to have had that extra year.
It was a love affair. We missed 18 years by 3 days, but it was still a honeymoon.
Ludden died of stomach cancer in 1981. After his death, White refused to remarry. Their 2-decade romance was enough for her. Apparently, when White passed away in 2021 at the age of 99, her last word was Alan.
To have had that experience, I mean, there's some people who go through their whole lives without having the love of their life.
If you've had the best, who needs the rest? Everybody says, how come you didn't get married again?
Number 23, Kobe Bryant and Vanessa Bryant.
I was always looking for her. Like, I wanted to know where she was. You know, I would finish a take and then go to my trailer, but I wonder where she is the entire time, and then come out of the trailer and just want to talk to her some more in between takes and stuff like that.
There was a time when the legendary Los Angeles Laker was doing double duty as a basketball star and a recording artist. Though the music career didn't pan out, he did meet a music video background dancer named Vanessa, and the two fell in love.
She became my best friend, you know, and for me it was very different to have somebody that I was so close to, because I had been so used to growing up in isolation, really.
Over the years, the couple dealt with the ups and downs of fame and life, including a devastating miscarriage, but they held firm, even calling off an announced divorce at one point. The Bryant's love story was cut short in 2020 when Kobe and their teenage daughter Gianna were killed in a helicopter crash.
God knew they couldn't be on this earth without each other. He had to bring them home to heaven together.
Number 22, Paul Michael Glaser and Elizabeth Glaser. This actor, director and writer and his wife experienced a tragedy that made them early activists in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Paul Michael and Elizabeth Glaser had only been married for a year when she contracted the still incredibly new and mysterious virus via a blood transfusion.
Within 3 minutes of the time that our doctor said to us,
Your daughter is infected and she is diagnosed as having AIDS. Your son is infected and you are infected. He also said, don't tell anyone.
Their daughter Ariel would later pass away due to complications from the disease. Both Paul and Elizabeth fought to establish protections and research grants.
I went to Washington to tell Presidents Reagan and Bush that much, much more had to be done for AIDS research and care, and that children couldn't be forgotten. The first time, when nothing happened, I thought they just didn't hear me.
Elizabeth also passed away due to complications from AIDS in 2004. Their personal difficulties led to a legacy of activism and the creation of the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, which is still in operation.
Her attitude wasn't why, it was why not. And she would never accept no. She'd say, we're going to get to this level. How are we going to do it? We'll figure it out.
Number 21, John Travolta and Kelly Preston. It started out like a classic Hollywood love story.
There's no time for sex games. I mean, you know, the gun, it's an exciting touch and everything.
The Grease actor met the Jerry Maguire actress on the set of a movie in the late 1980s. Although that film was a bomb, John Travolta and Kelly Preston were probably grateful to have been in it, because that's where they met and fell in love.
I saw him across the room. I was in the lobby, and I see this, like, yeah, walking across the lobby. So, you know, that was it.
Over their 29-year marriage, they had 3 children. A personal tragedy rocked the family in 2009 when their son Jet suddenly died while on a family vacation. Tragedy struck again in 2020 when Preston passed away from breast cancer. She was only 57 years old. Number 20, Steve Irwin and Terri Irwin.
Have a look at this Sheila. She's just beautiful. Next thing, the crocodile's trying to kill me, so I better concentrate on what I'm doing. And I kept watching her. Sure enough, she stayed back. We started talking about some really hot wildlife issues.
The Australian conservationist may have been an unlikely TV star, but his endearing personality and unwavering dedication to all things wildlife soared him to international stardom in the 1990s via his show The Crocodile Hunter. Steve Irwin's passion for wildlife and its conservation was shared by his wife and co-star Terri. Unfortunately, in 2006, at only 44 years old, a stingray injury resulted in his death. Though their story together ended, Steve's legacy lives on in their children, Bindi and Robert, who proudly took up their parents' line of work. Terri had said that she may never remarry and that she's okay with having already had her happily ever after with Steve.
Can you see another Steve Irwin? I just can't. I'd be like, I love that you're a librarian and the Dewey Decimal System is cool, but I gotta go jump a crocodile.
Yeah. Number 19, Patton Oswalt and Michelle McNamara. Comedian and character actor Patton Oswalt married true crime author Michelle McNamara in 2005. The two were heavyweights in their respective careers.
Michelle would actually go to the crime scene and walk the case.
Geographic connections, DNA profiles, genealogy websites. The first time she called me, I thought, she knows her stuff.
McNamara's life work was a book about the Golden State Killer, a serial murderer who preyed on California in the 1970s and 80s. Sadly, McNamara passed away suddenly in 2016 before she could finish her manuscript.
And it's happening right as she's putting all this new stuff together, and then it's just cut off. And it's this, it lands like such a, for me, obviously, but it lands like a body blow.
Oswalt worked to ensure that McNamara's efforts were not in vain. He oversaw the completion and publication of her book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, later expressing that finishing the book was as painful as it was rewarding.
Michelle was so complex and surprising a person. It's impossible for me to ever just predict what she would have thought. She would have thought something that I could not have imagined or anticipated. That's what was so amazing about her.
Number 18, Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. Paul McCartney met Linda Eastman when he was still in the Beatles, and she was a photographer of famous musicians.
Well, I was in England taking photographs for a book, and I thought I'd like to photograph the Beatles and Stevie Winwood, who's a great favourite of mine. And we happened to meet down in a club. It's one of them.
He flung himself down a club.
The two married in 1969. Once the Beatles broke up, Paul and Linda fronted a pop band all their own. They released several incredible hit records under the name Paul McCartney and Wings.
Only my love holds the other key.
The couple created a beautiful family and spent much of their lives together as champions of animal rights. But Linda and Paul's story came to an end in the late 1990s. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1995, and she passed away 3 years later at the age of 56.
It's very easy to live in the shadow, isn't it? Did you feel a necessity to break out?
No, I'm not really worried about that living in the shadow. You know, I love life and I'll just have a good time, shadow or no shadow.
Number 17, Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier III of Monaco. If any Hollywood actress was fit to be a princess, it was Grace Kelly. Her dignified and chic on-screen persona made her marriage to Prince Rainier of Monaco seem all the more like a fairy tale romance.
Nobody talks of anything but the wedding. Far from the pumpkin coach of a Cinderella is the glamour of the great occasion. Yet all who love romance have made it their own treasured occasion.
Their lavish wedding captured the world's attention. She never made a real return to movies after the marriage, instead prioritising her duties as princess.
I would like to be remembered as trying to do my job well, of being understanding and kind.
In 1982, Kelly suffered a cerebral hemorrhage while driving, and she and her daughter Stephanie were injured in a car accident. Both were lucky enough to survive the crash, but while Kelly was expected to make a full recovery, she was struck with a second fatal hemorrhage at the hospital. Rainier never remarried, and when he died in 2005, he was buried beside his deceased wife.
Pretty obvious that he was deeply affected, and he wasn't quite the same man as he was before the accident.
Number 16, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. With so many marriages comes a lot of heartbreak. After 2 divorces, Liz Taylor's third husband, Mike Todd, devastatingly died in a plane crash. Then there was her tempestuous marriage to Richard Burton that looms largest over her romantic history.
I think having a fight, an out-and-out, outrageous, ridiculous fight, is one of the greatest exercises in marital togetherness.
They were married in 1964, divorced in 1974, and then remarried a year later in 1975, only to re-divorce the next year. They were as electric off-screen as they were on, and the passion in their relationship inevitably destroyed it.
We loved each other almost too much. It sounds silly.
No, it doesn't.
But it was so intense that it was almost abnormal.
Taylor remarried twice more, but there was no getting over Burton, who died in 1984. Their former houses in Puerto Vallarta are still a tourist attraction for visiting lovers, with the bridge that connected them dubbed the Lover's Arch. Number 15, Selena Quintanilla Perez and Chris Perez. The story of Selena's life is tragic enough. She was only 23 years old and on the cusp of worldwide superstardom when she was murdered by her friend and business colleague, Yolanda Saldivar. The performer left behind her husband, musician, and Selena y los Dinos guitarist, Chris Perez. Their love story was full of obstacles, including the disapproval of Selena's father.
He said, he's like, whatever it is, stops now. And being that I was taken aback, that could have been an opportunity to try to, to say something and be open. But the only words that came out were like, okay.
Selena and Perez eloped, estranging them from her family for a time. But tensions had eased by the time of her death, and Selena was about to release an English crossover album when she passed away. Their story has since been immortalized in films, print, and TV.
I know why I love you so much.
Oh yeah, why?
Because I love you too.
Number 14, Keanu Reeves and Jennifer Syme. Keanu Reeves' easy and warm demeanour can't have come easy if you know what he's been through.
There's this sort of mythology that surrounds you, that you're sad. That there's this whole sad Keanu thing. That you're somebody who carries quite a lot of burdens around with you.
He and his former partner Jennifer Syme were both waist deep in the entertainment industry. Reeves was and is a movie star, and Syme was an assistant who had worked closely with director David Lynch for nearly a decade. Their 2-year relationship was hit hard by their daughter's stillbirth. The grief was too much and they ended their relationship. However, soon afterwards they got back together. Unfortunately, their reconnection didn't get the time it deserved because in 2001, Syme was killed in a car accident. Reeves marks the tragedy as a major turning point in his life.
You'll go on and have a beautiful life, the one you deserve.
I only want you.
You have me forever.
Number 13, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. It was a known secret that the two frequent co-stars were lovers for over 2 decades. However, the circumstances that never allowed them to be open about their relationship were complicated.
The Hollywood press and at that time the gossip columnists, they let you alone.
They let us alone because I think they thought that we made a great deal of effort not to sort of parade ourselves around.
Old Hollywood studios maintained tight control over bad publicity. Spencer Tracy, a lifelong Catholic, refused to divorce his estranged wife, who refused right back. Hepburn became Tracy's live-in nurse at the end of his life, caring for him in his final days. However, his legal marriage meant that once Tracy passed away in 1967, respect had to be upheld. Hepburn, who found his body, was left out of media reports of his death and did not go to his funeral out of courtesy for his family.
I was not his wife.
Has there ever been a man since Spencer Tracy who really interested you?
No, but I mean, then I was old, so it didn't matter.
Number 12, Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack. The deaths of Brittany Murphy and her husband, British screenwriter Simon Monjack, have captivated and disturbed fans for years.
He was mysterious in the way of like, who are you? But we didn't know what happened. All we knew is that this young 32-year-old Hollywood starlet had suddenly died.
Rumours about Murphy's health and substance use disorder, as well as allegations about Monjack's past and his being a controlling husband, ran rampant. When Monjack died a few months later, however, it only reignited speculation, this time about everything from medical conditions to toxic mold in the couple's home. A 2021 documentary was released, but it didn't do much to illuminate the public about one of Hollywood's biggest modern-day tragedies.
I can't say why or what happened in that house. It became a really awful tragedy that should never have happened. But to the reason why it happened is very difficult to state.
Number 11, Laurence Olivier and Vivien Leigh. Two-time Oscar winner Vivien Leigh met Laurence Olivier on the set of Fire Over England. Their love affair was marked by career highs, lows, infidelity, and mental health crisis. While the two were purportedly irrevocably in love, Leigh's bipolar disorder and Olivier's affairs led to heavy emotional disturbances for them both.
He couldn't go on, it was exhausting him. Suddenly being awakened in the middle of the night by being hit in the face with a towel or something.
They were divorced in 1960, although it was said their marriage was over long before then. Leigh died of tuberculosis in 1967. Despite being divorced and having found new life partners by then, Olivier rushed over to see her, even though she was already gone.
Whatever you read, he spent a whole 6 hours, during which time he was quite hysterical.
He was shattered. Jack rang him up and Leigh went round, then saw the body, and he was absolutely shattered.
Number 10, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio. Blind dates can be disasters waiting to happen, but when the biggest movie star met the biggest sports star on one such date in the early 1950s, the world seemed to stop.
He understood some things about me, and I understood some things about him, and we based our marriage on it.
Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe's whirlwind romance was the stuff of Hollywood dreams. Their deep passion, however, belied a tense and sometimes violent marriage. DiMaggio was reportedly jealous of Monroe's status as a cinematic sex symbol.
Oh, so you were around during that business that caused all the fuss with the skirt blowing up on the...
got very upset about it.
Did he really, or was that just...
Really?
Despite divorcing several years before, DiMaggio claimed the star's body after her death in 1962 and even helped with funeral arrangements. As the famous story goes, he would then send roses to her grave for 2 decades afterwards. A witness who was with him when he died even said DiMaggio's last words were about Monroe.
I call him in my book the demon lover because once Marilyn dies, he remains utterly devoted and faithful to her.
Number 9, Heath Ledger and Michelle Williams. Michelle Williams and Heath Ledger met and began dating while playing a married couple in Brokeback Mountain.
That was happy at work.
For a reason we both understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You fell in love on that movie.
I did.
The couple soon moved in together and welcomed their daughter to the world. In late 2007, however, they broke up. And not long after that, Ledger suddenly passed away, mere months after completing his work on The Dark Knight. Though the two weren't together at the time of his death, his loss had a profound effect on Williams.
I can find meanings in things and people and relationships that have sprung up and friendships that have strengthened. I can find a lot of meaning in that. But not in why.
Both actors in this Hollywood power couple were famously hesitant about putting their personal lives on display for the public, but the ensuing media circus surrounding the end of his life, as well as rumours about what may have caused it, brought unwanted attention to the details of their relationship.
Understand why people are so curious
about
your tragedy, the tragedy that happened to you.
Do I understand? Sure. Yeah, I do. I relate to it.
Number 8, Pierce Brosnan and Cassandra Harris. Before he became the face of James Bond in the 1990s, Pierce Brosnan was actually married to a former Bond actress, Cassandra Harris, had appeared as a glamorous countess romanced by Roger Moore in 1981's For Your Eyes Only.
What exactly did Columbo whisper to you?
That you were a spy, to find out more about you.
And have you?
Have I ever?
Harris passed away in 1991 from ovarian cancer at the age of 43. The actors had one son together, and after her death, Brosnan adopted Harris's 2 children from a previous marriage. Brosnan remarried in 2001. However, he is still a devoted advocate for ovarian cancer awareness. In 2013, Harris's daughter and Brosnan's stepdaughter Charlotte ended up passing away from the same disease.
To watch someone you love have his or her life eaten away bit by bit by this insidious disease, that kind of sorrow becomes an indelible part of your psyche.
Number 7, Clark Gable and Carole Lombard. She was the blonde bombshell with a wicked sense of humour, and he was the virile leading man of swashbucklers and rom-coms alike. Together they were a power couple. Though Gable had been romantically linked with many actresses, his relationship and 3-year marriage to Lombard remains one for the books.
They were 2 of the most beautiful people in Hollywood, and they were married, and they had this supposed idyllic life, so I think that they epitomize the glamour of a lost time, like a pre-World War II innocence.
Things were sadly cut short in 1942. Lombard was on a tour selling war bonds when she, her mother, and Gable's press agent died in a violent airplane crash. His wife's untimely death spurred him to join the war effort, and he became a pilot in the Army Air Forces before making a return to films. Longtime friends would say he was never the same after losing Lombard.
Carole Lombard was the love of Gable's life, and so she was the woman that he could never have again. He was the woman he could look for and try to replace and try to possess, but he could never replace her because there was only one Carole Lombard.
Number 6, Patrick Swayze and Lisa Niemi. He was easily one of the most charming leading men of the 80s and 90s. Patrick Swayze was a heartthrob for millions, but only Lisa Niemi got to call him hers. The two were aspiring dancers when they married in 1975 and were together until his heartbreaking death from pancreatic cancer in 2009.
This journey so far has been a journey, and she's helped me get through it, whether it takes getting me angry, whether it's calming me down, whether it's firing me up, whether it's inspiring me.
Until the end, the two were devoted to each other. Niemi took charge of Swayze's care. She kept track of his medical records and medications and made specifically prepared meals to keep his weight up. As a licensed pilot, she even flew Swayze to his cancer treatments. Though she has since remarried, Niemi maintains that Swayze's death wasn't the end of their love story.
Just because somebody's gone doesn't mean you fall out of love. And my wise friend said that's because love comes from the same well.
Number 5, Lea Michele and Cory Monteith. Glee was a cultural phenomenon with a dedicated fandom. So when it was announced that co-stars and on-screen lovers, Lea Michele and Cory Monteith, were dating in real life, fans were immediately invested. For them, it felt like they had followed the relationship through the characters they played.
I'm forever yours, faithfully.
Losing Monteith so suddenly in 2013 was a crushing blow to Gleeks everywhere, and we can't even imagine the pain Michelle went through. Monteith was only 31 but had struggled with substance use disorder for most of his adult life. In the series' 5th season, the show aired an entire episode dedicated to the death of his character Finn Hudson, which served as a stand-in for a public memorial for the actor who played him.
Go to the ends of the earth for you to make you feel my love.
Number 4, Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner. The former SNL cast member and Willy Wonka star were both high-profile celebrities when they met on the set of Hanky Panky in 1981. Gilda Radner and Gene Wilder married in 1984 and were by all accounts crazy about each other.
To me, it's irresistible. A funny man is irresistible more than any looks, more than any
She was always a sucker for a big laugh.
A sucker for a laugh.
After the couple's several unsuccessful attempts to have children, Radner experienced pain and fatigue that went misdiagnosed. It took almost a year for Radner to be diagnosed with ovarian cancer that would later kill her. Wilder dedicated himself to advocacy about the disease, opening up foundations in her name. While they were only together for about 8 years, these two comedic geniuses lived and loved enough for a lifetime.
I don't know if you are going to make masterpieces on the movie, but you are going to have a masterpiece in real life.
Oh, oui.
Number 3, Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson. Like many of the couples on this list, these two esteemed actors met when they became co-stars. Liam Neeson, the stage actor turned action hero, met Natasha Richardson, the product of one of England's foremost acting dynasties, while working on Broadway in the early 1990s.
She and I were like Astaire and Rogers. We had just this wonderful kind of free dance on stage every night.
They married and had 2 sons. In 2009, Richardson injured her head during a skiing lesson. Although she walked away from the incident seemingly unscathed, she subsequently passed away due to internal bleeding in the head. Neeson at least derives comfort in the fact that her organs were donated to keep 3 other people alive.
Her heart, her kidneys, and her liver. But
that must give you a good feeling.
It's terrific, yeah. It's terrific. And I think she would be very thrilled and pleased with that too, actually.
Number 2, Meryl Streep and John Cazale. John Cazale, who gave stunning and subtle performances in some of the greatest movies of the decade, was an acting powerhouse. In 1976, he began seeing his very talented co-star and up-and-coming actress named Meryl Streep.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above.
Just as she was making her big break in movies like Julia and The Deer Hunter, Streep was going through an impossibly painful situation. Cazale was dying of lung cancer. Streep took all the time off that they could afford, given the mounting medical bills and her budding fame, to care for him. When Cazale passed on in 1978, it profoundly changed her as a person and artist.
He was lucky enough to have as the last vision of his life Meryl's lovely face.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, Christopher Reeve and Dana Reeve. In 1995, the Superman actor's life changed forever when he was thrown from a horse. Christopher Reeve stopped breathing for several minutes before being revived, and when he awoke in hospital, he was paralyzed from the neck down.
The very bottom of my left foot, I can feel when somebody touches it lightly. When somebody touches it lightly, and I have feeling in my shoulders. And of course, my head and neck and all of that, my head is very sensitive.
Initially, he expressed to his wife, Dana Morosini, that he didn't want his condition to become a burden on her, but she supported him through rehabilitation, and his grief over his disability soon transformed into a renewed sense of purpose.
I think this is a real test of the wedding vows. He's my partner. He's my other half, literally. It's not within the realm of my imagination to do anything less than what I'm doing.
They turned to humanitarianism, which they continued until Christopher's death in 2004, and Dana's own death from lung cancer only 2 years later. Who is your favourite celebrity couple? Tell us in the comments.
Betty!
You darling!
I thought you'd be pleased.
I'd be surprised, and then I'd be irritated.
Well, that's what I mean, for heaven's sakes. A vote of confidence. A guy my age needs it.